My parents humiliated me on Thanksgiving in front of the whole family, so I stopped supporting them financially. I never expected Thanksgiving to be the turning point. Not in a million years. But as I stood in the living room, cheeks burning from embarrassment, I realized that some wounds, once inflamed, never really heal. I arrived right at noon, balancing 2 bottles of wine and a pumpkin pie I'd baked myself. The house smelled like sage, roasted turkey, and the faint tang of old wood. My relatives, cousins, aunts, uncles, gathered around the long dining table, laughter ricocheting around the walls. It felt familiar and warm. I stepped in, smiling, greeting everyone, and gave my parents a hug. I thought I'd set the tone, gracious, polite, caring. My father met my gaze with a tight smile. My mother hovered already, her slender arms crossed, as if she'd been waiting just for me. I exhaled slowly. I should have known. As the day wore on, we passed plates and stories. The mashed potatoes were perfect, the green beans crisp. The story of Uncle Martin falling asleep in his gravy bowl came up again, eliciting hoots of laughter. I laughed too, genuinely, until I felt something shift. Midway through dinner, my mother cleared her throat. The room quieted almost instantly. I sensed my pulse speeding. This wasn't good, maybe she needed help with something. Maybe she was going to compliment the pie. I swallowed, flipped a bite of turkey onto my plate. "What's with this?" she asked, voice sharp. "Buying your own wine now? Baking your own pie?" I blinked, surprised. "I figured I'd contribute," I began. "No," she interrupted, voice louder. "Let's be real, you're clearly trying to show off." My face went hot. "No, I just wanted to help." "Help? Or compensate for all the things you've been too proud to ask us for?" She turned to the table. "You know, you used to come here, lived off us, took what we gave without a second thought." The room shifted. Eyes flicked from my mother to me. I looked at my mother. That old familiar sting of shame shot through me. My father's head was bowed, silent, his face unreadable. I tried to swallow, but my throat felt clogged. "That's not fair," I said softly. "I didn't ask you to support me." "Oh, really?" Mom's words dripped with venom. "Let's call a spade, you know, you were happy being on our dime until you realized you'd rather be independent. Suddenly, you're spending your own money, riding high like you earned every dollar." "Don't make me laugh." Aunt Linda snorted. Uncle Barry shook his head. Between the forced smiles, the uneasy tension radiated. I pressed my lips together, heart pounding. I looked down at my plate. I didn't want to yell. I wanted to vanish. Taking a breath, I spoke firmly. "Mom, I've been trying to do better. I moved out 3 months ago, I got a job, I pay rent, I buy my own groceries. I have been working. I'm not trying to show off anything." My mother leaned back, brows lowered. "Is that so? Because from where I'm sitting, you look exactly like a child trying to show off to her classmates." The word child hit me harder than any slap. I'd fought so hard to feel grown, capable, free. I refused to let it break me. I raised my chin. "If that's how you see me, fine. But know this, I'm not going to accept your judgment, and definitely not at your table." My father's fork froze midway to his mouth. The air was thick. I took a breath, gathered my courage, and stood. "I brought the wine and pie because I care. I made them. Yes, I bought them. And yes, I want to help with Thanksgiving. But I won't accept humiliation or shaming. Not tonight. So if that's your attitude, I'll leave." My voice trembled, but I stood my ground. My mother's lips thinned, her eyes flashing. My father looked away. Someone cleared their throat. My classmates, cousins, shifted uncomfortably. The chatter died. Mom opened her mouth, but no words came. I grabbed my things, wine bottles, pie tin, and turned. I felt like my heart was breaking across the tiles of that hallway. As I reached the front door, I heard my father's low voice, "Don't do anything hasty." I paused, hand on the doorknob. He stared at me, but his disappointment was sharper than anger. I shook my head, pain and relief tingling together in my chest. I can take care of myself, I said. Then I stepped outside, into the crisp November air. The front step felt cold under my shoes. I stood there a moment, listening to the muffled voices of my family inside. The door was still open behind me, but I felt the distance widen. I took a breath, steadied my racing blood. I decided not to go back. Not yet. The drive home, 10 miles of dark, winding roads, was quiet and sad. I tried to focus on the engine hum, the streetlights, but my mind reeled, humiliation, anger, sorrow. Had I done the right thing? I kept replaying every word. My mother's harsh tone, her cutting labels. My father's silence. The cousin's discomfort. Could I live with this brokenness? By the time I pulled into my small apartment's driveway, my hands were tight on the steering wheel. I switched off the engine and sat there in the dark. Then I shook my head. No. I wouldn't let this eat me. Just because they chose humiliation didn't mean I had to choose shame. That night, I emptied my bank account into my checking. Paid the rent. Paid the utilities. Paid the credit card bill my parents had helped me start. This was the start of something, the day I truly decided they'd no longer control me, financially or emotionally. I fell asleep, exhausted and hollow, but resolute. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. The air in my apartment was still, quiet, the kind of quiet that presses in on you, reminding you something shifted. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. One message. From Dad. Hope you got home safe. Your mom was just stressed. Don't take it to heart. I stared at it for a full minute, thumb hovering over the keyboard. What did he mean, don't take it to heart? She didn't just criticize my pie. She tore through my dignity like it was disposable. And now, a gentle shrug of it all, just stress. I didn't respond. The silence between us stretched over the next few days. No texts. No calls. No follow-ups. Part of me expected a rant from Mom, a justification, even an apology twisted into a warning. But there was nothing. And that silence was somehow worse. By the weekend, I found myself reorganizing the apartment, partly to feel productive, partly to keep the noise in my head at bay. I rearranged the couch, donated a few old clothes, vacuumed under the bed. When I opened the top drawer of my desk, I found the folder labeled Family. It held all the bank statements from when I was still giving my parents monthly support. I used to send them $600 every month, no questions asked. At first, it was because they'd helped me during college and I wanted to repay them. Later, it became habit, expected. They never asked, not directly, but there was always that undercurrent. Little comments like, we're counting on you, or, you know how tight things are right now. Guilt dressed up as gratitude. I looked at the most recent transfer. $600, sent just 2 weeks ago. I deleted the recurring payment. It felt strange, like cutting a wire connected to an old machine. Part relief, part guilt, part defiance. But mostly, clarity. I was done being the quiet provider. The easy child. The financial crutch they leaned on without ever checking if I could stand upright myself. This wasn't punishment. It was protection. A few days passed. Then a week. On Tuesday morning, I got a call from my younger cousin, Molly. She'd always been kind to me, more like a little sister than a cousin. We hadn't talked much since the dinner. Hey, she said softly. I just wanted to check on you. My chest warmed a little. I'm okay. I mean, it sucked, but I'm okay. She hesitated. Your mom's been saying weird stuff. That you stormed out. That you abandoned the family. I laughed bitterly. That sounds about right. She even told Aunt Lisa you canceled their financial help out of spite. I canceled it, I said, because I'm not their ATM. And because being humiliated at Thanksgiving doesn't really inspire generosity. I figured, she whispered. I just wanted you to know. I've never seen her that harsh. It made me sick. Thanks, Mole. That means a lot. After we hung up, I sat down on my couch and stared out the window. So now I was the villain in their story. I guess that's how it goes, when you stop playing the role they wrote for you, they call it betrayal. But even so, I didn't regret walking out. Or stopping the payments. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was living on my own terms. The ache was still there, of course. I loved them. But I needed boundaries, and they had broken every one I'd tried to quietly build. The next bomb dropped that Friday. I was scrolling through social media, something I rarely did when I was trying to stay calm, when I saw it, a photo of my parents in their backyard, flanked by my aunts and uncles, smiling with glasses of wine. The caption from my mom read, "Family is everything. Even when some forget that." The comments were worse. "Always count on your real family. Some people are just ungrateful." Such a strong mother. She had turned it into a public martyrdom campaign. Painting herself as the hurt, misunderstood parent, and me as the ungrateful child who dared to stand up. The rage flared, hot and immediate. My thumb hovered over the comments section, then the share button. I could have blasted them. Posted the truth. Laid it all out. But I didn't. Instead, I made my own post. A photo of my tiny apartment's window, sun coming through the blinds, and a cup of coffee on the sill. The caption was simple. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away. No names. No direct callouts. Just peace. My kind of peace. The likes trickled in. A few DMs from old college friends asking if I was okay. Molly liked it too. That was enough. That night, I got an email from my dad. Just the subject line. "Let's talk." I opened it. "I won't make excuses for what happened, but I'd like to speak with you privately. No drama. No mom. Just us. I want to understand what's going on and how we got here." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I hit reply. "We can talk. But only if you're ready to hear the truth, not just what's comfortable." We met at a quiet cafe 2 towns over, neutral ground. I chose a table by the window, far from the entrance. I didn't want to risk running into anyone from the extended family. The waitress greeted me with a smile. I nodded politely, but my eyes were fixed on the door. Dad showed up 10 minutes late. That was typical of him, not rude, just detached. He didn't make eye contact as he approached. Just slid into the seat across from me and gave a tired sigh, like he'd just finished a long run. "Thanks for coming," he said. I nodded, silent. He ordered a black coffee. I already had mine. For a few moments, neither of us spoke. We just sat in the awkwardness, like two people at the aftermath of a minor disaster. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I wrote some things down. Didn't want to forget what I wanted to say. I raised an eyebrow. "Okay." He unfolded it, eyes scanning the top. "First, I want to say I'm sorry for how Thanksgiving went down. Your mother was wrong to speak to you like that. In front of everyone. It was cruel." That hit harder than I expected. He was finally admitting it. Not excusing it. Just calling it what it was. I didn't respond. I let him talk. "I know you've been supporting us. Financially. And I know we never really said thank you the right way." He paused. "We got used to it. Took it for granted. That's on us." I looked out the window, trying not to let my face show how much that cracked me open. He continued, voice lower. "But here's the thing, your mom, she sees things differently. She still thinks what she said was tough love. Like she was waking you up to how fragile everything is." I finally looked at him. "Fragile for who?" He blinked. "I've been living paycheck to paycheck since I left home. I've skipped meals to make sure rent clears. Meanwhile, I was still sending you money every month. And she thinks I need waking up?" Dad exhaled. "I'm not defending her. But to her, the fact that you moved out and started doing okay without help, it made her feel like she was being phased out. That's not my fault." "No. It's not." He folded the paper. "But it is the truth she's sitting with. And sometimes people strike out when they feel left behind. I took a sip of coffee, the bitterness grounding me. You know, I never expected anything from you guys. I never asked to be repaid. I just wanted some respect. Some acknowledgement that I'm not your dependent anymore. He nodded. I see that now. A long silence stretched between us. Then I said, I'm not sending money anymore. He didn't flinch. That's your choice. You're not wrong. I'm not doing it to punish you. I'm doing it because it hurts too much to keep giving to people who treat me like I'm ungrateful just for trying to grow. I get it, he said softly. Another silence. Then, with surprising steadiness, he added, I'll talk to your mother. Maybe not today, maybe not this week, but I will. She needs to hear this. From me, not you. I nodded. It wasn't a fix. But it was something. When we parted ways outside, he gave me a hug. Not a fatherly bear hug, just a firm, steady embrace, like he was trying to say something words couldn't. I drove home without music. Just the rhythm of the tires, and the occasional ping of my phone, a notification from work, a text from Molly, a calendar reminder. That night, I slept a little easier. Over the next few weeks, something strange happened. The world didn't fall apart. My parents didn't show up at my door. They didn't call, they didn't text. For once, silence felt like peace, not punishment. I poured myself into work. I started budgeting seriously. I opened a small savings account. $100 at a time, I watched it grow. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Mine alone. Then, in late December, I got a letter. Handwritten, in my mother's looping script. I stared at it for a while before opening it. Dear Evan. I've been thinking about what happened. I've read and reread your post online, and at first I was furious. I thought you were turning people against us. But I realized, it wasn't about us. It was about you. And I didn't listen to you. I was harsh. Too harsh. I said things I can't take back. I want you to know I do love you. I've always been proud of you. I just didn't know how to show it without feeling like I was losing something. I'm sorry. Love. Mom. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. But I felt something settle in me. Something loosen. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't closure. But it was a beginning. That weekend, I sent her a short reply. Thank you for your letter. I appreciate your words. I'm still working through things, but I'm open to rebuilding, at a pace that feels healthy for both of us. I need boundaries. I need respect. And I need space when I ask for it. If that's something you can offer, then we can move forward. January was quiet. No dramatic phone calls, no surprise visits. Just time. And space. Exactly what I needed. I spent more evenings walking around my neighborhood, wrapped in a scarf and gloves, breathing in the cold air and watching my breath swirl in front of me. I didn't listen to music. I wanted to hear my own thoughts, raw and unfiltered. Some days I felt proud. Other days, small and petty. Healing wasn't a straight line, but I was walking it anyway. I started journaling again. Not every day, but enough. At first, it was mostly venting, old memories, unresolved arguments, times I'd felt invisible at home. But gradually, the entries changed. I wrote about new friendships, about the little wins at work, about making my own soup from scratch and fixing a dripping faucet without calling anyone for help. It felt real. Grounded. One afternoon, I got a text from Dad. Dad, your mom wants to see you. She's not expecting anything. Just a short visit. You don't have to decide now. I stared at the message for a few minutes, then typed. Me, only if it's just coffee. 1 hour max. My place. There was a pause. Then. Dad, understood. She came the next Sunday. I watched her from the window as she pulled into the parking lot, stepping out in her old beige coat and clutching a small box. My stomach twisted. I half expected her to barge in, to take over, to comment on the curtains or the chipped mug I was holding. But she knocked gently. No lecture. No dramatics. "Hi," she said softly, not stepping inside right away. I nodded. "Come in." She sat on the couch like a guest, her hands in her lap. I made us coffee and handed her a cup. We both sat in silence, sipping. For a while, it was just the sound of the heater humming. Then she said, "I've been reading your old letters." I blinked. "Letters?" She looked at me. "From when you were in college. The ones you sent from your dorm. With the doodles in the margins." My heart tightened. I remembered those, written on lined paper, stuffed with dried leaves or ticket stubs, sent home with the hope they'd understand the life I was building. "I didn't appreciate them at the time," she admitted. "I thought you were just showing off how grown you were. But I see now, you were trying to stay connected." I nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. She placed the box on the table and slid it toward me. "I brought them back. In case you want to read them again. Or toss them. That's your choice." I opened the lid. There they were. The letters. Faded, creased, still smelling faintly of old ink and lavender. "Thank you," I said, voice quiet. We talked. Carefully. No accusations, no sarcasm. She didn't deny what happened at Thanksgiving. She didn't try to rewrite it. She just sat with it. "I was proud of you," she said, eyes misty. "But I was scared too. You were slipping out of reach. And I handled it all wrong." I swallowed. "I needed you to cheer me on. Not tear me down." "I know," she said. "I'm sorry." Those two words didn't erase the past. But they softened the edge of it. We didn't hug when she left. We didn't cry. But as I closed the door behind her, I felt a strange kind of peace settle into the room. Later that night, I reread one of my old letters. I'd written about failing a biology exam, about eating cold pizza at 2 a.m., about a girl down the hall who played violin like she was summoning ghosts. I'd been so young. So hopeful. I smiled to myself. That kid hadn't given up on his parents. He just hoped they'd meet him halfway. Maybe now, they finally were. February came. With it, more small moments. I got a raise at work, nothing major, but enough to make rent easier. I texted Dad to tell him. He replied. "Proud of you. You earned it." I printed out the message and pinned it to my fridge. Maybe it was silly, but it meant something to me. One weekend, Molly invited me over for dinner. She just moved into a tiny loft with her boyfriend and wanted to show off her IKEA table and wall of plants. Over pasta and cheap wine, she said, everyone noticed the difference. I tilted my head. "What do you mean?" "At Christmas," she said. "Your mom wasn't snide. Or bitter. She just said, your name is figuring it out, and I'm proud of them." I sat back in my chair. "She said that?" Molly nodded. It shocked the whole table. I wasn't there. I hadn't been ready to go to Christmas. But maybe next year. Maybe. That night, I opened a new document on my laptop. Just a blank page, a blinking cursor. And I started writing, not a letter this time, not a journal entry. A story. My story. About how the people who raised me didn't always know how to love me the way I needed, but how I learned to love myself anyway. About how I stopped bleeding to keep others warm. About how walking away didn't mean giving up. It meant growing up. Spring arrived gently, the way change often does. Not with fireworks or sweeping revelations, but with small, quiet shifts. I noticed it first in the way I answered phone calls. I no longer flinched when I saw Mom or Dad on the screen. We didn't speak daily, or even weekly, but the conversations we did have were lighter, healthier. Not perfect, but real. Sometimes my mother would ask about my work, and for once, she'd just listen. No passive-aggressive jabs about how I finally figured things out. No comparisons to others. Just questions. And I gave her honest answers, even when I knew she wouldn't fully understand my world. My father and I texted more often. Short messages mostly, but filled with warmth. He sent a photo of the old grill we used as kids, saying he'd finally replaced it after 20 years. I replied with a thumbs up and a memory of him teaching me how to flip burgers without crushing them. One weekend in April, I drove down to visit them. I told myself it was just a trial run, a soft test of how things would feel in person after everything that had happened. But deep down, I knew it was something more. It was me checking in with the version of myself who had once stood outside that same front door, holding a pie and a bottle of wine, being told I was a show-off. I arrived at noon. Same as before. The door opened before I even knocked. My mom stood there, wearing the apron I remembered from my childhood, stained from years of cooking, faded but clean. "Hi," she said, and hugged me before I could answer. Inside, things looked the same but felt different. No big production. No forced smiles. Just the smell of lasagna and garlic bread, and a table set for 3. We sat and talked about neutral things at first. The garden. The new neighbors. Dad's failed attempt to install a ceiling fan. I laughed more than I expected to. Then, during dessert, Mom said, "I've been reading more books on emotional intelligence. Communication." She smiled nervously. I didn't think I needed that stuff. I thought being a parent meant knowing everything already. I looked at her. She looked humbled. "It's not too late to learn," I said. She nodded. "I see that now. We didn't rehash Thanksgiving. We didn't need to. We both carried the memory, but not the bitterness." When I left later that day, she handed me a Tupperware of leftovers and said, "You don't owe us anything. We just want to be part of your life. However you want that to look." And for the first time in years, I believed her. Over the following months, I found myself thinking less about what I'd lost, and more about what I'd built. I was still on a tight budget, but now I was saving with purpose. I began taking a writing class on Thursday nights. Just for fun. No pressure. Just a room full of strangers writing stories into existence. One week, the instructor gave us a prompt: write about a time you walked away from something you loved, and what it taught you. My pen hovered over the page for a while before I began. There's a difference between walking away from someone and walking away from a version of yourself that was always trying to earn love. I didn't walk away from my parents. I walked away from being the unspoken glue, the one who patched things, paid quietly, sacrificed endlessly just to keep the illusion of peace. The class clapped when I read it aloud. But more importantly, I felt something settle in me as I read it, like I'd finally said it, not just to them, but to myself. Summer arrived with long days and warm evenings. I hosted a barbecue at my place for the first time. Nothing big, just a few friends, some co-workers, and, unexpectedly, my parents. They showed up together, carrying a cooler and a tray of brownies. My dad wore sunglasses indoors. My mom complimented my choice of outdoor furniture, even though it was clearly second-hand. When the sun dipped behind the rooftops, we sat in my tiny yard under string lights, laughing over paper plates and lemonade. At one point, my mom leaned over and said quietly, "I'm glad you pulled away." I hated it at the time, but it forced me to see what I'd become. I looked at her, surprised. "I didn't do it to punish you." "I know," she said. "But it woke me up all the same." I nodded. "That's why I came back." She smiled. "I'm glad you did." And now, months later, I sit here reflecting, not on the shame or the fight, but on the choice. The choice to stop bleeding for others just to be called generous. The choice to say, enough, and not flinch. The choice to love people from a distance until they proved they could love me up close, without control, without conditions. I still have boundaries. I still don't send money. But I send texts. I answer calls. I attend birthdays. I host dinners. I laugh, and I love, and I show up. Just not at the cost of myself. Some people will never understand that kind of boundary. But those who matter most now. They do. I'll always remember that Thanksgiving. Not as the day I lost everything, but as the day I finally found something. Myself. Thank you for watching the video. Like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.